Hello and welcome into Betting Life's pregame college football betting show. I'm your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by NBC Sports' Eric Froton and the coach, Gene Clemons. We will also have Mike Bainbridge here, college fantasy football godfather, later on in the show to talk DFS and player props. And over the next 90 minutes, of course, we're going to be handing out our best bets of the day and taking your audience questions. So those watching on YouTube, start writing your questions in the chat. We will get to those as we go throughout the show. If you don't mind hitting the like for us, that would help as well. Get the word out there. If you're watching on Twitter, if you wouldn't mind sharing the link with a friend or retweeting it, we'd appreciate that too. Get the word out there that we're doing this. Without any further ado, let's get into today's card. We have a good one today, and we have game day in Berkeley for the first time ever. Let's kick this thing off with the noon kickoffs. Missouri traveling to Texas A&M. This line, Texas A&M about -2.5. We have some early news on this game today in College Station, which is Pete Thamel reported this morning that Connor Weigman is back. Although Thamel also reported that Marcel Reed apparently is going to get his fourth straight start. It appears that Weigman will be available. Will we see him off the bench? We'll have to see about that. Texas A&M has a bye next week. So the thought is that Weigman will be the starter after that, although it seems like we're getting a little hedging here for Mike Elko, potentially starting this game off with Marcel Reed for one more time. Gene, we'll start off with you. With Texas A&M favored by 2.5 points and these factors in mind, who do you like in this game?
I'll tell you the thing that I looked at is if Connor Weigman was to get more time, that would only be good for Missouri. Like, it would only be good for Missouri. I think that Marcel Reed is the future. They should just keep that going. But with this, I just don't trust this Texas A&M team. We know what we're going to get out of Missouri. Missouri is going to play really good defense. Missouri is going to stand up and they're going to execute well. They're not flashy. They're not like an overly explosive team, but they're not going to beat themselves, and I like that. And one key that I've picked up on over the years is I've been in sports betting. Anytime you're under -3 as a home favorite, I automatically want to just pound the away team and go money line, because I feel like that's Vegas saying, hey, we don't really trust this home team, but we still want to try to get some action. So we'll put this at 2.5, or we'll put it at 2. When 3 is usually that line of demarcation that says, hey, we think the home team has a chance of winning this. So I'm going Missouri, and I'm going to go Missouri money line. I think they win this thing outright.
Froton, the player props in this game, at least on the A&M side, have been a bit hard to parse with that quarterback situation up in the air. A little bit easier on the Missouri side. But Missouri, they've been playing weird so far this season. They haven't played anyone. They had the FCS team, Buffalo, and then the last 2 weeks before last week was Boston College and Vanderbilt. They go into the bye. The one thing that's really hard to parse with the Missouri prop handicapping, Luther Burden last year had a 34% target share on this team. This year, it's down to 17%. It has literally been cut in half. That team, and the only time that they've been in trouble this season, then they start throwing it to Burden. But the game scripts for that team have been really, really weird. I'm wondering how you handicap the props of this game.
Yeah, well, keep in mind with Burden, the first 2 games they played Murray State and Buffalo, that they won a combined 89-0.
True.
So,
and he was compromised too at the beginning of the season, to be fair.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he gets 6 targets, catches 4, 49 and a touch first game, and then 3 targets all the second game for 15 yards against Buffalo. And then, like we talked about, Boston College, Vandy, 6 catches, 117 and 1 against BC. And then last game, 6 of 9, 76 and 2 against Vanderbilt. As discussed, now they actually are pressing a little bit more. You got to play Texas A&M. And unlike, Texas A&M, Missouri's had a very easy path. Not the case for the Aggies. Obviously, Notre Dame first week had a 26-20 squeaker against Bowling Green. Bowling Green did the same thing to Penn State, too. And then, obviously, Arkansas last week, a 21-17 hard-fought, kind of a bowling shoe ugly contest. But both of these teams have similar profiles in that they're good on down-to-down basis, but Neither of their offenses are particularly explosive at all. With Missouri, they rank with a 49% success rate. However, 128th in yards per successful play, 122nd in marginal explosiveness. They need to get the ball in Luther Burden's hands. They're going to have to create some points, try to get a little bit of distance from Texas A&M, and they're going to have to create in any way they can. Don't have Cody Schrader anymore, which is kind of what their identity was. They wanted to pound the ball on the ground last year. They have Nate Noel, but he's not the same kind of physical back. I think you're going to see a lot of Luther Burden. He gets 10 targets, which means he's going over his 68.5 receiving yards total.
Yeah, I'm also over on Burden, although it has been weird. But you mentioned some of the context. Burden wasn't 100% at the beginning of this season. They were also in the blowouts against the bad teams. You would have to figure in this game, it's going to be one of the ones where they leverage the usage to him. So he was in the Froton? It was high 60s at the start. Believe he's now in the mid 70s.
Mid 70s. Here we go. Of course it is. Right?
And the catches was it was 5.5, I believe.
5.5 is a smoking deal. Love it.
I'd be over on both those, and I agree. The receptions is at this point the one that I think I would like more.
It's safer. They get them to manufacture touches all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Missouri's coming off like I mentioned, the strength of schedule to this point has not been good for Missouri, and I don't like the way that they've looked. And you have to get some offensive cohesion back here. Getting the ball to Burden will certainly help, but A&M, they've actually faced real opponents. Everyone remembers them losing to Notre Dame in the opener. They've also played a game at Florida. They played Arkansas last time out, 4-1. I got to side with A&M in this game just because I haven't liked the way that Missouri has looked. Missouri has to prove it to me, and getting A&M under a field goal, that's the way that I would lean on that. But the props on Burden, I think that's the only one that I'm playing in this game. Again, the A&M quarterback situation being up in the air. Boys, the next game on the docket here, another noon kickoff, Louisville hosting SMU. Louisville right now in the market, about a 6.5 point favorite. Gene, who do you like in this one?
This game is one of those ones where I'm not really on either Louisville or SMU. I'm on the over on this thing. I think that both of these teams are top 20 offenses in the FBS. They both have played good defense, but they're playing their best defense versus really bad teams. Versus good teams, those teams have been able to score. I think both of these teams, neither will have a problem scoring the ball. I think that this is one that will probably fly over 60 points. I could see it being a 38-35 type of affair where one team just comes out because they've got the ball last. That's what it feels like to me. I think both teams have the ability to score with explosive plays, and when that happens, it's going to make the other team feel like they have to amp up their output. So I think this is a game that has over points all over it, which means that there must be a lot of props on this Froton that you must be all over.
I certainly got a couple at the very least. Ja'Cory Brooks had been pretty much an over cash machine for so long, but now Colin Lacing's back, and he got himself a pretty healthy target share last game too. So I'm actually going to stay away from the receiving props today, but I do have a lean on the Louisville side. Keep in mind with SMU, Nevada, Houston Christian, BYU, TCU, Florida State are who they've played so far. Not a prolific set of run offenses at the very least. Certainly not TCU. Maybe do you want to make the case that Florida State can run the ball? All of those teams have been extremely flawed when it comes to that area of the field. And then when you go and you look at Louisville, and I have to say, Thor, my gosh, I know that the Southerners out there, their ears are bleeding with the Louisville. It's not Louis, it's Louisville, Thor. Come on now. We gotta straighten up our diction, my friend. That being said, Isaac Brown, freshman running back for Louisville. We saw this unsettled backfield with Don Chaney and Maurice Turner, but last game, Isaac Brown takes 13 carries, 72 yards. He's been gradually getting more and more work. That was against Notre Dame's run defense. And now we're going up against SMU, who, like we discussed, hasn't really faced a team with the offensive potency, at least on the ground, that we've seen from Louisville. I think you see a very reasonable line here, under 50 yards for Isaac Brown at, I believe, 47, 48 and a half. I'm going to advocate an over position. He was closer to the early 40s. He was like 42 is where he opened. That has since steamed up, and you can see why. I think he gets double-digit carries, and he hits that.
Louisville. How'd you do?
Louisville.
Yeah, I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota, the town that Fargo was based in. That's where my accent's from. I'll have to work on
don't
that,
you know? Yeah.
No promises on that. SMU has been playing better recently, right? I mean, of course, the opponent, Florida State, but they did smoke them, and then ran over TCU in that game as well. Kept it close with BYU, which is a more impressive result than it would have seemed at the time. My line on this game is Louisville minus Louisville. Okay, is Cardinals by 4.8. I'm going to take the points here with SMU. The props in this one, the one that I liked was Kevin Jennings over what I felt like was a pretty fair number. Let me see if I can pull it up. It was in the 170s Froton, 180s.
Kevin Jennings passing more than we kind of expected him to,
for sure.
Frankly, last game, because he has the dual threat profile, and you're like, all right, is that what we're going to be doing? Is it going to be Brashard Smith just pounding it all the time? But I was surprised how many times he threw the ball last game, to be honest with you, and not badly. They do design rollouts, and they're keeping him safe. They're not putting him in tough positions, but he's executing.
I'm looking this up on the FantasyLife prop bet finder, which is tremendous. If you go on the college football thing, it gives you the lines at like 5 different books. So right now, Jennings at MGM and FanDuel 184, and that's up from I believe it was in the high 170s at the open. I go over on that. The game script should be there for SMU to keep throwing the ball. And like Froton said, they've been putting Jennings in better spots and also in more situation to put the ball in the air. Of course, Kevin Jennings started the season as QB2. He took over for Preston Stone. Preston Stone badly struggling at the start of the year. More and more trust for Kevin Jennings as a thrower. He has that dual threat game. And in this game, the Cardinals' pass defense hasn't been as impressive, whereas their run defense have been better. Froton gave the contextual thing about this schedule. So we'll have to see if that run defense is for real. But the metrics are great so far for the Cardinals. I also went under on Smith's rushing in the high 70s, low 80s. Went under on that. Again, that's one where the game script could go against him. And then also to this point, at least, and again, keep in mind the small sample we're working with, but the Cardinals' run defense has been far better than its pass defense to this point. But I would lean towards taking those points in a game where
our friend Joe Bot Capozzi is also with you on Mr. Brashard Smith's under. And he's a Brashard Smith guy, so that's that's something you want to have. He's one of the best cappers in the world.
Yeah, Lashley will get more, he'll skew way more towards the pass if he has to. And this is a game where he definitely might have to. SMU's defense, we'll have to see if they can hold down the Cardinals' offense. But, and I agree with Gene on this, by the way. I think this one's getting over. My system had a total on this game of 60. We're in the mid 50s as far as the total goes. I think we're getting points in that one. Boys, moving to the afternoon now, a school near and dear to my heart, the Iowa Hawkeyes, are taking their offense and their team to Columbus, Ohio, to take on Ohio State. This line is down to 18 at this point. It opened 20 and a half. Gene, who do you like in this game?
I was really tempted to take Ohio State in this game. I didn't. And just for the record, anyone, if you all want to know what I'm taking, what I'm on, definitely go and hit that bet tracker on the FantasyLife website. It's fantastic. I think when this is all over, Ohio State's just way too much for Iowa. But these are the games, right? If you're using intuition, these are the games where Iowa will come out and do something that just mucks the game up, that just makes it nasty, makes it dirty, makes it not as sexy as a normal Ohio State game would be. And maybe even if they don't pull an upset, do something that makes this line look like, man, who thought they were going to lose by 18? But conventional wisdom says Ohio State is just a way better team than Iowa is right now, and that's what I'm leaning on. Not just because Iowa's not sexy offensively on usually, but just because Ohio State has so many different people and ways to beat you. Again, I'm not taking it, but if I had to lean one way, with it being at 18 right now, I would lean towards Ohio State.
Froton, moving to the props in this one, for me, this is a running game. Iowa's run defense has been and coming from someone that watches every snap of Iowa football, their run defense has been a bit more susceptible this year than in recent years. And just by the numbers, Iowa's run defense 70th in success rate, 76th in opportunity rate, 80th in power success rate, 129th in stuff rate. And then so that's on the Iowa side. And then Ohio State, they have good run defense metrics, but against not the best rushing offenses, and their line yard metrics are not the best in context of the opponents that they face. This could be an over game for Judkins. It could also be an over game for Caleb Johnson, who is in the low 80s, has been going ballistic and averaging well over 100 yards so far. That's sort of where I'm seeing this game. How are you handicapping the props in this one?
Yeah, keep in mind, too, with Ohio State, what are they doing well? They're doing well in terms of suppressing successful pass plays. However, what are they not doing well? They're giving up big pass plays for the first time in a while. 111th in passing explosiveness, 102nd in yards per successful dropback. And with Iowa, as we know, that's Iowa on that side defensively. What I'm worried about with Iowa is, are they going to be able to have the script where they're going to be able to consistently run with Caleb Johnson? If they fall behind, they're going to want to go after. They're going to have to throw the ball. What Ohio State does is they will allow a 63% completion rate, but they'll make you work their way down the field. I think if we're looking at Cade McNamara, he's currently at 24.5 passing attempts. I think that's script-wise really, really asking for the over 24.5, a very reasonable line. And if you look at what he did against Iowa State, which is really the comp we have, that's the one game they were actually behind. Well, even though they weren't behind, but they had to pass a little bit. He threw 29 passes, which is 5 more. He would easily clear this against Ohio State, where they're going to, chances are, be behind a little bit. You're going to have to throw. I like the 24.5 over pass attempts for Cade McNamara. And on the other side with Ohio State, my man, Emeka Egbuka, we saw week 1 against Akron. He didn't have to do anything. But each of the past 3 games, Michigan State, Marshall, Western Michigan, he's caught at least 5 passes for at least 96 yards and had a touchdown in each of those 2. With him going over 96 in each of the last 3 games where he's really been trying, coming off a season where he was hurt and he really wants to make sure he establishes himself, he's playing a lot of that slot role, which gives him space to work with. Lining Emeka Egbuka at 59.5 receiving yards, I don't care if they are playing Iowa, I'm taking his over.
The one of Egbuka, I like that as well. I agree with you. Iowa, their pass defense, and it has been solid to this point. As good as it has been in recent past, 18th in success rate, top 30 in EPA per pass. But Iowa on pass defense, they play, and this is going back years and years and years and years and years under Phil Parker, predominantly zone coverage. Their percentage of playing man this year, 28.6. The national average, 37.2% of the snaps. So Iowa decidedly more of a zone team. The Egbuka, he's your crafty veteran. He's the guy who immediately recognizes its zone, knows where to go to get into the green space or to get himself into the grass and make himself available to the quarterback. Whereas Jeremiah Smith, he's your man beater. Literally. He's the guy who's going to body people downfield. Iowa's zone coverage, I think it's a better fit to defend Jeremiah Smith's game. So, and whereas Egbuka, he's just going to keep poking holes in you. Poke. He's their intermediate guy. Again, the crafty vet. I'm over on Igbuka. I also did some speculative, not official play, but some speculative tossing some Jeremiah Smith unders into a couple tickets. We'll see if that's famous last words, but Iowa does have the good secondary, but that's where you can beat them, is that quick stuff by beating the descending defenders coming down. So
yeah, and Cooper Jean was doing a lot of that role last year, and now he's obviously with the Philadelphia Eagles, so they have to replace that sort of mobile slot, do everything sort of cornerback that would have been on Igbuka before.
For sure. Yeah. So like those ones, I also like the Judkins over, again, because of the constitution of that Iowa defense now. And the Caleb Johnson one, I went back and forth on it because I don't love Iowa's offensive line this year. I think that they're thoroughly mediocre. And then you're in this game where the game script could go against you. And at least on the surface, Ohio State's run defensive metrics appear pretty good. Caleb Johnson has been an absolute beast, though, this year. He got the biggest, I believe, upgrade when College Football 25 did their ratings update. It was yesterday or the day before. They gave Caleb Johnson his flowers, bumped him up to like an 88, and maybe should be even a little bit higher than that. Yeah. He's been beasting it. So that number in the low 80s, I think I'd lean over on that one. The only other Froton, you mentioned the McNamara over passing attempts. I like the Luke Lachey over receiving 19.5. McNamara keeps the passes short. He has to. It's out of pragmatism when he goes back to throw because he doesn't have the arm. Lachey, who was injured before, comes back in, reingratiating himself back into the offense. But he's their one legit NFL dude there. And so in this game, when you're looking for any possible way to manufacture yardage, I think he is going to be looking Lachey's way. I think that price at 19.5 is super duper reasonable. And as far as the spread on this game goes, we're getting pretty close to the margins. My spread on this one, Ohio State minus 16.6. I would lean the points, but I don't know how much value is there right now. The total in 44.5, that's one where you could, if you wanted to speculate, I think on an over. Ohio State, they play fast, and Iowa, with Caleb Johnson and Tim Lester, they have been scoring more points this year. It's been a better offensive, they have more talent there for sure, but just the offensive strategy, that seems like a reasonable price to me too. Those are not official plays for me, but that's the way that I would lean. Last game before we get into the audience questions, those of you on YouTube, you can type those questions into that chat, and we're going to open the mailbag here in a second. But just one more game before we do, just like Iowa and Ohio State, this is a 3:30 Eastern kick. Going back to the SEC here, this is a handicap that very much interested me. Ole Miss is traveling to South Carolina today. This line it had come down to 8. And then almost overnight, it is back up to Ole Miss laying 9.5 the last time I saw this one. Gene, this line's toggling every which way. Who do you like in this game with Ole Miss coming off the disappointment and South Carolina potentially looking to ambush them here at home?
I think that Ole Miss will be motivated because of how poorly they played, how poorly they executed offensively last week. And that's why, low key, I'm on the over on this game. That's where I feel like the value is right now. 52.5 points, not a lot of time. Not a lot of points for Ole Miss, who we know likes to not only score points, but they like to give up points as well. And I think South Carolina's offense has been better than almost anyone thought their offense would be going into this season. People were saying, man, I don't know how they're going to score points before the beginning of this year. And now we've seen them have some outings where they're putting up points. I think this 52.5 is a gimme. I think this ends up being one of those games where somebody gets ahead and then the other team reactionary opens the offense up. And I think Ole Miss will be motivated to really put some points up today. And that's why I think our guy Jackson Dart gets right back on the hump, Froton. I've got him in my bet in the bet tracker as over on his passing yards today. What do you say about that?
Well, yeah, you're obviously last week we got a question on the show. Is he going to go over 300 yards again? I said I didn't think so. It's unfortunate that I was right. Sorry, Mr. Dart, but Yeah, now you're sort of taking advantage of the overcorrection. It's in that, low to mid 280s right now, and it's just dangling out there for you. I will exercise caution in that South Carolina, their pass rush is very, very good with Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart. We've talked about them a couple times on this contest and how they just have been collapsing pockets. What's interesting here to me as well in this game is the running backs. A lot of conjecture about the playing time for Raheem Sanders. He's banged up. We have a late report on Henry Parrish, starting running back for Ole Miss. He is apparently banged up now too and is questionable. Is expected to play, but if he's already banged up and you have, the tendency where we know that Lane Kiffin likes to rotate backs, if you already have one kind of going in limping, we're seeing the low 80s on Henry Parrish right now, 82, 81, down to 79, depending on where you're looking. I kind of like with the strength of that South Carolina front and, like you said, a little bit of conjecture with the injury, might want to toss in Henry Parrish on a parlay or two just to get some exposure to and some sprinkles since he went under this line last game and he's already coming in limping.
Yeah, for sure. The rushing one that I like, though, the under is Jackson Dart, who is, I believe it was 27.5 earlier this week. The last time I seen it, it was down to 23.5, 22.5. Let me see.
23 to 25 is where we're at right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 23 for a low. Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. Caesars is the one where it's 25.5 under on those. And the pass rush for South Carolina is the reason why South Carolina pass defense metrics overall are good, but a lot of it comes back to that pass rush. South Carolina 7th in sacks per dropback, 4th in pressure rate. That pass rush they have is absolutely ludicrous, and it literally pulls apart offenses, passing offenses, because you can't keep your timing, you can't do the downfield stuff. Quarterbacks are under duress right away. This is going to be a big test for Ole Miss's offensive line. Are going to have to hold up against those amazing edge rushers. But either way, keep in mind, prop bettors out there, that in college, sacks are deducted from the quarterback's rushing total. For that reason, often this year, I'm going to be going under on the rushing totals of these quarterbacks going up against South Carolina. We're doing that with Dart here. The other thing I want to mention, just as far as the game handicap overall, South Carolina was banged up prior to their bye week last week, but it appears that they're going to be getting a bunch of guys back. So on Wednesday's practice report, they had 3 dudes listed as questionable whose statuses were up in the air. All 3 of these guys were upgraded to probable on the Thursday injury report that they put out. That is Lenora Sellers, the quarterback. Recall that
he's starting. Yep.
Starting. Yeah. In the last game against Akron, Robbie Ashford, Froton's boy, he had to take the spot start there because Sellers was a little banged up, but we're getting Sellers back in this one. Rocket Sanders appears to be a go as well. And then Jared Brown for South Carolina. So South Carolina's offense gets fleshed out again. This one is, as far as the handicap, my line on this game, Ole Miss minus 6.7. I lean towards taking those points of South Carolina. At this point, I'd wait to see if it gets to 10. And then my favorite prop in this one is going under on the Jackson Dart rushing yards for the reasons that I just stated. All right, boys, let's get into our mailbag. Open that up for the first time of the day. Appreciate everyone joining us today. Appreciate all the questions. So let's hop right into it. Jacob Hears asks us, UConn minus 17. I think that line got up to 17. I believe it was beneath that, but this morning appears that it's gotten there. UConn, the upstart UConn Huskies. Jim Mora had the shocking run of them to the bowl game in his first year. Last year they regressed, although they were decimated by injuries, all season long. Today they're hosting Temple. Boys, any thoughts on that one? Laying the 17 with UConn.
Yeah, look at UConn. John, our friend John Lobb, most excited about this. The man has been a season ticket holder, seriously, for time immemorial over there at Rentschler Field.
Shout out to Lobb.
Shout out to Rentschler, too. What a beautiful home field that is. It's good to see it rocking again over there in Connecticut, home of NBC Sports headquarters over there in Stamford. That being said, nice, really, really soft schedule so far for Connecticut. I mean, they're 3-2, obviously, but it really does need to be taken with a grain of salt. Did give Duke a real good run at 26-21, but just destroyed Florida Atlantic and Buffalo over the past couple of weeks. I mean, after that 50-7 loss from Merrimack week 1, this has been a new look UConn team. I mean, how can you not get excited here? That being said, pretty soft on the ground here for the Huskies, and that shouldn't be a problem, obviously, against Temple. Evan Simon, their quarterback, he looked great last time out. Like, they had been searching for some continuity in the passing game. They finally got it, and that's what they want to do. But that's what Connecticut does real well. 28th in defending explosiveness, 45th in passing success rate is really good, 19th in first downs per completion. So with what Temple likes to do.
Froton, Evan Simon banged up this week, has been ruled out for this game. So
ruled out, yeah.
And that's probably why it ticked up to 17 there.
That's a problem. That's a real problem. I don't think they can move, though. They don't have much of a run game, even though Antoine Littleton, Maryland transfer is there. And that's a bad matchup against this Connecticut secondary. I'm not feeling too bullish about Temple.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I mean, my line on this was around, if both teams were at full strength, is UConn minus 2 touchdowns at 14. Without Simon, I don't think I can take that one. Mike Huseman asks us, Tulsa are plus 13.5 against Army. Double-digit home dogs have been a great bet this year. Does Tulsa have a shot to cover this? And Gene, before I kick it to you, our friend Mike Huseman plays with Froton Knight in our 50 college fantasy football league. He wanted me to tell you that your boy Ted Hurst, that you helped develop, Huseman signed him on the free agent wire after week 1. And last week, you gave Hurst a shout out, Gene, on the show. Hurst went off last week. So Huseman wanted me to thank you for Ted Hurst. But any thoughts on Ted Hurst update, and then Tulsa, the Tulsa game? Have any thoughts on that, Gene?
Yeah, you guys know how I feel about the service academies when they've got upperclassmen and they're loaded. I think this is a bad team to welcome into your home when Army is rolling like this. This is one of my best bets on Bet Tracker this week. You can see it. I actually got Army early in the week and got them at 10.5, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not surprised that it's up to 13.5 right now. But I think Army does the work that Tulsa by 2 touchdowns at least today. Probably 17-21, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, in the past, you would never lay double digits on the road with the service academy, but those service academies are throwing now a bit, right? Like both Army and Navy have effectively ingratiated some sort of passing element into their offenses, which was pragmatic. The cut block banned by the NCAA hurt the traditional flexbone style triple option. So both those schools have effectively modulated their offenses to address that. And it's proven devastating so far. Now, of course, you have strength of schedule caveats to apply there, but that has made both offenses more dangerous. Air Force is going to have to consider that in the future, because Air Force sharply regressed this season. Next question, George Savaricas asks us, NC State projected minus 7.5, but that spread has dropped to minus 3.5 against Wake. Should I be worried NC State has a freshman quarterback versus Wake Forest senior quarterback Hank Bachmeier? Any thoughts on that one, Gene?
Hank Bachmeier, it feels like he's just been around for a long, long time, not winning games. Unfortunately, but I think this game right now is one that I would stay away from. Too close to call. NC State, in my opinion, is underachieved. Wake Forest, what are they for real? This one is a game that if I had to give advice to anyone, this one would be one. There's so many much better games to put your money on than these two teams. I just don't know what each one of these guys are going to be going into the game. And like I said last week, if you were watching, when I don't know what you are, I don't know what your identity is, and we're 6 weeks into a season, I usually just try to stay away from those teams.
Froton, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I got thoughts on it. CJ Bailey, freshman quarterback, as alluded to in this question, last week against NIU in a 24-17 slog, 13 of 20 for 108 and a touchdown, rushed 10 times for 22
Not the best.
yards.
Not the best, Bob.
Not great, Bob. Yeah, we're going full Pete Campbell here in Mad Men with the not great Bob. Yeah, not particularly enthusiastic. Previous game, he threw for 204 and 25 passes against Clemson in a game where it was 52-14 at halftime. Ended up being 59-35 by just simply the kindness of Dabo Swinney letting him climb in.
Wake Forest's pass defense might be the worst in the nation.
Might be the worst in the nation. I have watched Cedric Bailey throw a football, though, Thor. I have done that. And he is better off playing rugby. I am going under 216.5 passing yards. I don't care how bad that pass defense is. Either you can throw the ball or you cannot throw the ball. I do not think Cedric Bailey can throw the ball well. I think he'll run. I think he's going to try to run the ball pretty well. But I don't know if NC State can afford to put the ball in harm's way against the Wake Forest team they should be able to lean on in theory.
Yeah, this is one I'm staying away from just because I don't feel like I have a great feel on either team. There's something wrong with that NC State team.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I mean, there is a stench coming off that team.
Yeah, it's goofy over there for sure.
It is. Yeah, and it's hard to put your finger on it. Their game plans get wonky at the first sign of anything. They're wonky coming into games, and then they'll change it. And like I have the aforementioned 50-team league. I have Jordan Waters in that one, the running back for NC State, and the usage for him is ludicrous. Like it's like they changed the way that they're going into each of these games in a way that is not helpful to the team. It's like, oh, we're going to be pass heavy in this game. Now we're going to try to be run heavy. Now we're going to abandon the run in the second half. Weird stuff going on there. By the math, you would take NC State in this game. My line is NC State minus 7.5. I'm not touching that thing. I could easily see Wake Forest going in there and upsetting them. Could also see NC State winning by double digits, but they're going to have to wake up. NC State needs to wake up. That team is playing terrible. Next one, sure. YGG Young Walt says, how does an overlook for the Ohio State Iowa game at 45.5? I go over. We talked about that one a bit ago. I go over that one. Jeff Caravan asks us, Dart rushing yards prop. I'm going under that one. I love the Dart under rushing because the South Carolina pass rush. Jordan Leidecker asks us, favorite Ohio State running back wide receiver yardage prop. Jukin 74.5, Henderson 47.5, Egbuka 61.5. I think Froton and I agree on this one. It'd be definitely
Henderson's over 47.5 now. They were much closer to being balanced as I'd seen throughout the week. I'm
check that on
surprised that it's that far down. It had been closer to that like 50s, maybe 60 mark.
At FanDuel, it's 45.5.
Woo!
Henderson live. Yeah. The 47.5 is that
teasing us now. Ooh.
Just teasing us. You can run on Iowa a bit. That number's down that's sort of strange. I don't
think they stop them. I don't think Iowa stops them. Jeez,
I'd probably go over on.
I can't help it.
Over on all three of those.
Hey, look how excited Froton's got. He's in his chest. That was great. I love it.
Appreciate you, Jordan. Yeah, you got
palpable.
On that one.
I can't hide it, but I'm excited.
I can't believe I love a bunch of overs in an offensive over props in an Iowa football game, but that's where we are. Let's see. Nick Kaler asks us, Western Michigan minus 10 today, but prior to Maction opening up. Boys, any thoughts on the Western Michigan Broncos this afternoon?
Man, Tim Lester, we've missed you. Tim Lester, he's off to the coordinator deal, but as far as Western Michigan, I don't feel particularly good about them. Defensively, I don't know how you can trust them. They've been bleeding red ink all over the place. And you don't expect much from MAC defenses, but man, I don't know if they can their offense can offset just how porous they've been.
My line on this game is, I guess it's up to 10 now in the market with Western Michigan at Ball State. My line on that game is Western Michigan minus 5.2. Western Michigan is not like I get it. I understand that Ball State has been one of the worst teams in the FBS this year. I love Mike New. Shout out to Mike New and shout out to Muncie, but they haven't been that great. But should Western Michigan be laying double digits against? I mean, how many teams in the FBS should they be laying double digits on the road against?
Defense? Like, come on. They've created 2 turnovers all season. They rank 131st success rate, efficiency, 3-and-out percentage. They've only induced 16% of 3-and-outs. I can't trust them at all.
That defense gave up 31 to Bethune-Cookman. Like,
you can't.
If we're just keeping it a buck, like.
And Ball State, of course they haven't looked good, but they
got Braden Sloan though.
They played at Miami, Florida, not in conference, and then they played at James Madison as well. And James Madison might have sneaky to get into the college football playoff. By the way, James Madison, I had to buy
70 on UNC.
I had to buy a little ticket on that. James Madison right now has the highest projected win total in my system in the FBS. It's like 11.5 at this point. Like the look at James Madison, the rest of their schedule. That is it's a pretty easy path towards being undefeated in the regular season, going to that Sun Belt title game.
I say you got to take the over in this game is the play. Don't bother.
I probably go the over. Yeah,
Ball State is 100% to the over. They're 4 for 4, so take it for what it is.
R. Stews asks us, "Good morning, guys. Good morning, R. Stews. Who do you like on the money line in the UCF Florida game?" The props is what I like in that one. So I'll just toss out my props for that game really quick. I like the under on Montrell Johnson, the Florida running back, because UCF talked about this on last week's show prior to the UCF Colorado game. Was one of the reasons that I love Colorado in that game was the constitution of UCF's defense. UCF can stop the run. They have a good run defense. Their pass defense is terrible. And I love handicapping against the lopsided defenses where one of the units good, the other one stinks. That's what UCF is. So I'm going under on the Montrell Johnson rush. The game script could also get away from Florida. So I love that one because it was in the 70s. And then I'm going over on the Elijah Badger receiving, which was a very reasonable 51.5, 52.5, like somewhere in the low 50s. Keep in mind that Wilson, the stud running back or stud wide receiver for Florida, he's been out. The slot guy that they had manufactured all the short touches for, he's been out. And so Badger, he gets a ton of the targets now, particularly when Florida goes to pass, which they might have to in this game. Those are my two favorites. But Gene, did you have any thoughts on the side of this game?
I think the UCF is really going to be purposeful about getting back to their identity. I think they tried to get a little too cute at Colorado and the game got away from them. Look for big rushing in this game and them to really just kind of get back to what they do best. I don't know if Florida can stop them with on the rush. I haven't been impressed with Florida's defense at all this year. And so I think that'll be the margin for UCF to get a victory today.
All right, boys. Let's jump back into the games. We'll have to go quick here so we can get Bainbridge on here in 20 minutes. But audience, keep typing your questions in. We'll get back to them and open the mailbag here in just a second. But wanted to finish out the big games on this slate today. Moving to the let's see what's our next game on
Auburn, Georgia.
Auburn,
big
Georgia.
One.
I love this one. So this is another 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Gene, with this line down to 21.5 in the market, who do you like in this one?
I like Georgia. I think that they in the second half they may have like unlocked something. They may have said, "Hey, let's not be as conservative." If that's a word that we'll use with Georgia. Let's not be conservative. We've got 4- and 5-star guys all over the place. Let's use them. Let's just open this thing up. And I think that Auburn's been bad, just objectively bad this year, surprisingly bad this year. I don't know why they're that bad. Like they should never really be bad. It's Auburn. But I think that Georgia goes in. That Georgia wakes up. They walk outside, they see Auburn over there. They think about how Alabama did them last week, and they say, we want to do that to the other Alabama team that we see. And it's bad. It's a bad day for Auburn, lights out for Auburn. A lot of mollywhopping going on in Georgia today. And definitely, by the way, shout out to somebody that mentioned that I'm in the booth. If you see people running around behind me, we're getting ready for Morgan State at 1 o'clock. So really excited about them. Morgan State homecoming is going to be live here. It's going to be exciting. I'm really happy to be on this call. And so if you see people in the background, that's what they're doing. They're getting ready for a call.
Love it. So on the side of this one, earlier this week at 23.5, I grabbed Auburn. I'm not shocked that the line has come down on this one. This game also features what is potentially my favorite prop play of this season, what I felt like was a mistake line coming out. And Froton, I called you earlier this week to tell you about this line, about where this thing had dropped, and like, what am I missing here? The Peyton Thorne, the rushing yards for Peyton Thorne opened at 11.5. And Froton, but before I kick it to you, I wanted to toss out a couple things about that. That Georgia's defense, first of all, it's sagged a little bit this year. It's down to 11th SP plus, but particularly their defensive weakness, it's against the run, and particularly the outside zone concepts, the sort of thing that Auburn last year absolutely shredded them over and over again with. Peyton Thorne in that game had 90 plus rushing yards. That's also the thing that Jalen Milroe recently, a week ago, we seen him ripping up Georgia's run defense with that, went way over 100 yards. The week before that, former Georgia quarterback Brock Vandagriff had almost as many rushing yards against Georgia as he had in the other 4 games this season combined. A guy not known for his legs, Vandagriff would have doubled the number that it opened with. Now, Thorne, 11.5 open. This thing is hopped up to now is 17.5, 18.5. I laddered that thing all the way to heaven at the beginning of the week, right? Like, when we were talking about it, you could have gotten 9-1 at 40 plus. He's in play to get 40 plus. He's in play to get 50 plus because of the constitution of that Georgia defense. And Froton, this morning, when the more exotic stuff starts to get tossed out there in the prop market in advance of once you get to game day, you brought up another one with regards to Thorne's rushing that I thought was really interesting and a good value as well. Talk about that one then, if you have any other props in this game.
Which was the prop I'm talking about here? I missed it.
The rushing attempts by Thorne.
Rushing attempts. Yeah, with Georgia, keep in mind, 71st in rushing success rate, 128th defensively in opportunity rate, which is just you're moving the ball forward at 3-4 yards at a clip, but maybe not popping big ones. Like, you're moving the ball forward consistently against them, and that's not something that you could do against Georgia before. And as discussed with Auburn, what are they doing badly? All right, let's start with that, because that's where you really do have to start with Auburn. What do they do badly? They turn the ball over, and it's via interception. 131st with a 6% interception rate. That is absolutely unacceptable. You're not going to be putting the ball in the air against Georgia when they're having this sort of success like we saw Alabama have, we've seen other teams have on the ground. And with Auburn too, yards per carry before contact, 41st. Yards per carry after contact, 5th nationally, averaging 4 yards per carry after contact. And with that important metric, opportunity rate, they rank 27th in the country, a 55% rushing opportunity rate for Auburn with 15 turnovers, right? This Auburn team can't afford to be playing games and flipping the field on themselves, okay? They're 3rd in the country with most turnovers, only 4 turnovers that they have created themselves. I like a conservative game script out of Auburn. I think we see more of the stretch run plays in the RPOs that you allude to, Thor. And I think they can keep it close with a conservative game plan against Georgia within these 3 touchdowns. They haven't been as bad on a down-to-down basis as they have been just by shooting themselves in the foot. I think Hugh Freeze can at least keep it together enough to be within that range.
Yeah, this was a shocking line when it dropped as far as the side goes, and not surprising at all that the market has pushed it down to that 3 touchdown number. My line on this game, just in a vacuum, Georgia minus 17.4, and I think Auburn matches up decently well. Again, we saw Auburn in the first year of Hugh Freeze last season. They played a better Georgia team extremely tightly by honing in on that Georgia defensive weakness, which, by the way, has been the case now for a couple years. Even when Georgia's defense was better, they still struggle with those outside zone run concepts. The other thing, vis-a-vis the Thorne rushing in particular, is the sack yardage gets taken out. Mentioned that earlier in the show. I'll always mention that, as a contextual point. Georgia doesn't send waves and waves of heat. They don't generate an enormous amount of sacks. They're 55th, I think, this year in sacks per dropback. A couple other things specific to the Thorn prop. Thorn has gone over this listed rushing number in all three of his starts this season. He averaged 38.3 rushing yards per game in those 3 games. And then you go to last season, the last 10 regular season games of last season, Thorn had 27 or more rushing yards 9 times out of 10. He always goes over this number. And the idea that Georgia is more equipped to keep him under is absurd. This is what Thorn does on the ground is, in particular, the weakness of that Georgia defense. And again, Georgia does not generate the sacks that are needed to deduct from that. And Froton, you're totally right. Auburn is going to play a bit more conservatively. You're not going to test that the good Georgia pass defense. Here, we've seen Thorn turn the ball over a whole bunch. When Auburn is running the ball well and when they are not turning the ball over, their offense has actually been decent this year. Now, I realize that taking turnovers out of the equation, you can't really do that. But Auburn, in terms, let's look at second order wins, a data point that looks at your box scores and what it would suggest that the game would play out as opposed to just the rote record. Auburn's 2-3. You look at the second order wins, they're 3.9. So more qualitatively like a 4-1 team. It's just they keep getting their backs broken by the turnovers. Love the Thorns overs in the rushing market because they're going to keep the ball on the ground. And I do think that Auburn keeps this game a little bit closer.
Yep.
Not necessarily.
Keep in mind,
yeah.
And keep in mind with Thorn, as you mentioned, that Arkansas game, he came in for Hank Brown, right? So you got to throw out that attempts and that rushing total. If you look at the 2 games that he started against FBS opponents, Cal 14-21 loss, Oklahoma last week 21-27 loss, rushed 15 times and 17 times. His line's 10.5 on the rushing attempts.
Yeah,
over.
Over. The next one, moving now to I think 4 p.m. Eastern. Rutgers traveling to Nebraska, boys. We have to do a quick hitter on this one. With Nebraska now -7. The one thing I wanted to mention in advance, the winds are swirling there in Lincoln today. We had reports of near 20-mile-per-hour wind for this game. I'm on the unders of the Dylan Raiola passing. The books didn't give us a rushing number this time. And over on the interception, Gene, who do you like in this game?
Hey, take those 7 points. Rutgers is so much more improved. And
Agreed.
I think Nebraska is almost living off what they did to Colorado, which felt like, now looking back at it, one of those snowball games where things just went bad for Colorado quick and they never were able to recover. I don't think Nebraska's that good. And I think that Rutgers is much improved. Rutgers is alive as a dog today. If you wanted to take the money line, I think you would be well within your right to try to throw a little change on Rutgers to win this thing outright. But I'll take them 7 points, and I'll sit back and relax today.
Froton, I agree with Gene on this one. I'm on the points. I also nibble a little bit on the Rutgers money line. Do you have any plays quickly on this one?
Yeah. Welcome to the Rutgers offense. What do? They run the ball all the time. And I know that Nebraska is a little softer against the pass, but look, this is Athan Kaliak-Manis we're dealing with. I don't need to tell you, Thor, about Athan Kaliak-Manis. If you had him as your quarterback, you would be running the ball too. Right now, we're looking at Kyle Monangai, 18.5 carries.
Bro. Yeah, over on that one. And over on the rushing as well. Yeah.
Who escort that person out of the building, put their belongings in a box, and have them.
All right, Froton, we got to get through it quicker. Any other plays on this one? Over on the Monangai rushing, any other ones for you on this one?
I like that. We'll go with just Monangai rushing because he went 25, 26, and 27 each of the last 3 games. You're going to give me an 18.5. Pound it later.
We like Rutgers. We like the over on the Rutgers rushing, and then probably the unders on the passing if you believe the 20-mile-per-hour wins. Another quick hitter here: Michigan traveling to Washington, 7:30 Eastern kickoff this evening. This line now has come all the way down to 1.5. Washington favored. It was at 3 before. Gene, quick hitter on this one too. Who do you like in this game?
I like Michigan because if you're going to just sell out to the rushing, Michigan runs the ball well. We know that Washington has had some struggles versus the rush. I'll take Michigan because I think they'll be able to run the ball. And that's, to me, that's it. That's where it comes down to.
Froton, I'm with Gene on this one. Michigan can run. I mean, rematch in the national title game, right? And at least the defense of Washington has a sort of similar constitution where they're very good against the pass, not as good against the run. Khalil Mullings, he has been coming on, so you'd think that Michigan will be able to take advantage of that. Obviously, Michigan cannot pass, and then Michigan has the really good run defense here. As far as potentially taking Jonah Coleman out of this game. And as far as Michigan's pass defense, they are getting back Will Johnson, the top 10 overall cornerback prospect, to take away one side of the field. They're also getting back Josiah Stewart, their stud edge rusher, who is probably a day 2 prospect. Do you have any props or any bets in this game?
Yeah, believe it or not, I think tight end Colson Loveland, Michigan, is actually orgy proof. That is almost I didn't know if that was even possible.
I've never heard that term.
Well, here we are. Last week, 4 of 5 for 41 yards. They're going to throw him at 30.5 receiving yards. He's still been there. I understand how inept Orgy is throwing the ball, but Colson Loveland is simply too good, and you can get it the way he is. He's right there running the Y options. He's right in front of Orgy's face. He can throw it. Bang. There he is. It's as simple as it gets. I like Colson Loveland to go over 30.5.
Yeah, he's the only guy that they're going to throw to.
Only one.
Yeah, I went under on Jonah Coleman in that's like 60.5 was under on his rushing because
he opened 62 and he's down in the 50s now. That was great getting him at 60.
Yeah, under on him. And then Mullings, I got him early in the week, but the way that one is shot up, I don't know, now it's into the hundreds. I don't know if I touch it at that number, but those are the ones we were on. And boys,
if anything with Mullings, it's his carries. His carries, I think, is like 18.5, 19.5, and he got 22 last week. I think they'll try to run it.
They got to pound it on the ground for sure.
Yeah.
And that's, you're going into the weakness of that Washington defense.
And it ain't going to be Donovan Edwards. We've seen he's third down back Donovan Edwards. If you wanted to take a speculative under on his rushing yards, I wouldn't blame you. He was 53.5 to start. He's now 48.
Well, someone on this panel said that Donovan Edwards has the vision of Mr. Magoo out there when he's behind the line.
Somebody did. Some savvy northern folk right up there in Minnesota.
Our last game on the docket before we get back into the audience questions and then welcome on Mike Bainbridge to talk about DFS and props is Miami traveling to California. First time that College Game Day was in Berkeley. They were up before the sun was out this morning there. Mario Cristobal was out there. They're calling this one woke versus Coke. They have all the interesting things with that. Pretty interesting game, and one where the line has fallen all the way from 13.5 to 10 right now live. Miami laying 10. Gene, who do you like in this one?
You have to always appreciate anytime a team that's really good struggles in a game, because then everything becomes market. Oh, maybe they're not that great. Listen, Miami's really, really good this year. They're really good. They're really explosive. Cal is going to struggle with that good and that explosiveness. The trip over isn't going to be a problem. The woke versus Coke thing was like really, really, it was really funny. It was really, really funny, and it's really messed up at the same time. But I like Miami. I like Miami as a bounce back. I think that they go out there and lay it on this team by a couple touchdowns. I think it's interesting that everyone is so quick to just jump off of Miami when they struggle, based off of the fact that last year when they started struggling, it was a snowball effect. I don't think they have a quarterback that's going to allow them to do that. I think Cam Ward gets back on track this week, and Miami puts it to California pretty easily, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. Okay. Froton, any thoughts on this one? Any props in this game?
Yeah, I got thoughts. I mean, everybody knows that I don't even drink alcohol. So I'm sure as hell not going to be drinking Coca-Cola. It's bad for your teeth. All right. Everybody has known how bad Coca-Cola has been for you for so long. Don't drink soft drinks. Be like Froton, drink smoothies. That being said, Cam Ward listed right around 300.5. He's now up to 310.5. I still don't think it's enough. Dude, I know Cal has a very, very good secondary. I'm not hating on him. I mean, 51% completion rate allowed, 11th in the country, 31% pass success rate. I get it. Look, no problem with that. But this is Miami, all right? This ain't Auburn. This isn't UC Davis. This isn't Florida State. And this isn't San Diego State, all right? That's who they've played so far. Not a decent passing team in the bunch. And don't you Florida State me. So we're dealing with Miami now. Cam Ward has annihilated this line every single game. He's gone for at least 343 yards in every single game against an FBS opponent. You're going to go in there against Cal with game day, with Crystal Ball getting up at the crack of dawn, and you're going to tell me that he's not going to clear 310.5? He is going to clear 310.5 over Cam Ward passing.
I guess I'm going to be the dissenting voice on the panel, and I'm coming in.
Okay, you want to lose, Thor.
I'm coming in emphatically. Not only am I taking the points with Cal here, I got 13 earlier in the week. Cal outright tonight. Cal, this is an all-time spot.
Then Cam goes
all-time
over.
Spot. Cal. So first of all, first time that College Game Day is in Berkeley, one of the biggest regular season games in Cal football history. Then you have Miami traveling 3,000 miles across the country to come back for this one in a kickoff that is going to happen at 10:30 local time p.m. tonight for those Miami players. That game is not going to get done until around 2 a.m. Eastern time. Cam Ward is great, but Cam Ward is also susceptible to turning the ball over. 4 interceptions, and I think 3 or 4 interceptions the last 2 games. A couple of those coming against Virginia Tech in a near upset. Virginia Tech got 14 points off of those turnovers, and the Hail Mary at the end of the game getting overturned, blah, blah, blah. That emotional roller coaster is what Miami comes off of. Cal comes off a bye for this one. You're not going to find a better spot in college, situational spot, than this one. And then I also think Cal matches up reasonably well. Cal's pass defense is really, really good. And so I didn't touch the Cam Ward passing for all time, so I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you on that one, but I'm going over on the half of an interception for Cam Ward. He's been throwing them, and Cal grabs those interceptions as well. So, and then also the constitution of the Miami offense. They keep passing no matter what. They have Damian Martinez, they have Fletcher, but because of Shannon Dawson, the air raid, whatever, they go through the air. You're going right into the strength of that Cal defense. And then last thing, flipping the ball to the other side, the Cal offense, they have not been full strength. And by the way, the whole Cal team has not been full strength. That whole entire team was ravaged by injuries right at the start of the season. Looking at their injury report, a whole bunch of guys are either going to be 100% for the first time or coming back for this game. Jaden Ott, the Cal program, has been saying the last couple of days he is 100% for the first time this season. Suffered an injury in the third quarter of the opener against the FCS team. That caused Jaden Ott to either play not 100% or to miss one of the games. They withheld him for one of them. The Auburn game was crazy impressive going across that was Cal going across the country. They upset Auburn in that game when Jaden Ott probably shouldn't have been playing. And then Cal was missing numerous other starters in that game. They still pulled out that upset. I think they match up well here. You get Ott back to 100%. The Golden Bears, so Cal, 3.5 second order wins in 4 games, despite only averaging 3.8 yards per carry so far this season. That's because Jaden Ott has only averaged 3.3 because Jaden Ott hasn't been 100%. And he's their best player, right? So you get him back at 100% now. The last 2 years, each of them, both seasons, Jaden Ott averaged 5.3 yards per carry. And was 1,300 yards or so 1,305 last season. He also has not gotten ingratiated into the passing attack yet because he hasn't been 100%. He's 100% this time. I think he's going to take advantage. I think Ott goes nuts, and I think Cal springs the upset here in this prime situational spot, one of the biggest games in regular season history for that program. We're going to open or should we call up Bainbridge? Do we have Bainbridge in the room? Or should we...
Go to Gene's FCS play and pull up.
Oh yeah, Gene. I'm sorry, Gene. Your FCS play of the day before we bring up Mr. Bainbridge.
Yeah, and I'll be quick because I want to get Bainbridge in here as well, so he can help me make some money. Southeast Missouri State. They are taking on Illinois. Eastern Illinois. Southeastern Missouri State has been better than anybody thought they were going to be going into this season. They've been consistent. They've been explosive. They've been beating teams that people didn't think they had a chance against. The win versus Southern Illinois, a really, really good win for this team. Eastern Illinois just not that good. Hasn't been able to put together anything consistently all season. Southeastern Missouri, giving up 8.5 on the road. I'm on a lot of road favorites today, by the way, and this is another one. Southeastern Missouri minus 8.5 at Eastern Illinois. That is my FCS play of the week.
All right, boys, we're gonna open the mailbox up one last time and bring on Bainbridge in 3 or 4 minutes for DFS and prop talk. So those and we'll empty the clip on the rest of our prop plays as well. Xavier Jones asks us, are there any teams you like to hit field goals today? Love that market. I love the prop market. I don't play any of the field goal props. I'm sorry, Froton. Do you? I've never heard you talk about a field goal prop, but Gene, no.
I'm really not a field goal prop guy.
I don't think we can help you on that one, Xavier.
My boy Mitchell Lee out there, he throws some of those out there. I'll give him a plug, my boy. Go check out Mitch's stuff.
I mean, what's Alejandro Mata's field goal total? Because he's a guy that Coach Prime likes a lot. And so next week, when Colorado plays again, Mata, that's the dude I would tell you to go. I have no clue.
This might be the first time in my time doing all these shows that I've been stumped by a prop question. So congratulations to Xavier. I've never played a field goal prop. Kevin M asks, do you foresee Walker being the bell cow for Wisconsin with Malusi out or still a timeshare? I was talking about this situation with Froton on the phone yesterday. Froton, give the synopsis of the Wisconsin backfield right now, if you would.
Ring once, ring twice, hang up the phone so that I know you got home. Part-time lover, Stevie Wonder. I see the part-time lover situation coming over here. Darian Dupree, not to be confused with Robbie Dupree, former WWE.
Jermaine Dupree.
Yeah, Jermaine Dupree. But Robbie Dupree, Girls in Cars, amazing song, Strike Force's theme song from the 80s, wrestling reference. But that being said, I'm seeing Dylan Jones, I'm seeing Darian Dupree, I'm seeing Tawee Walker. I think you continue to see that shared backfield we've seen for years and years and years out of Phil Longo, offensive coordinator at NC, now at Wisconsin. I think he just keeps rotating. While Tawee maybe gets 17 carries instead of 15, I don't think it'll be a 20 carry game.
And by the way, in that game, I'm taking the points with Purdue, and I really like it. I think you're going to get the dead cap bounce from that Purdue offense with Harrell being fired this past week, a guy that not a lot of people at that program liked. And then the other thing, you have swirling winds there. You have Wisconsin playing there again because Tyler Van Dyke's out for the year. You have that Locke kid for Wisconsin who is not very good. Purdue,
I saw him last week on the field.
Terrible.
On the field. Not first half, like they protect him a little bit. That second half, he was throwing lollipops to where me and JD were on the field, and he threw a couple in a row. We just looked at each other like,
they're not going to be
going on right now with this.
They're not going to be protecting him in this game.
Bad news.
The only thing that they do well is their pass rush, and they have a top 10 pass rush in the nation. So I also went over on the Locke interception thing. Went under on his passing yards.
100% on the over his interception.
We got swirling wins here. The other prop that I like in that game is Devin Mockabee over 50.5 rushing yards. The Wisconsin run defense is way down. Let's see. Jay Fritas asks, can UMass play with Northern Illinois? Thinking of laying the points here. Your thoughts? I don't think that UMass can play with Northern Illinois. Does anyone have a dissenting opinion on that?
I love Don Brown. I love that he blitzes
Dr. Blitz
the time. But UMass, my alma mater.
We're all on. Yeah, we'd all be on NIU,
over
right?
Their head, boys, over their head. I ain't playing that game with NIU.
Yeah, they're gonna blitz right. They're gonna blitz right past the running back, and he's gonna go for 70, 80 yards. Like that's what happens when you blitz and they get by that first level. They just take off for big yards in there. I can see Northern Illinois rushing for over 300 yards in this game.
Mike Huseman asks us, Louisiana is minus 17 against Southern Miss. Do you guys like a side here? Any Drake Clark props from Froton? Froton, do we have some Drake Clark?
I will talk Rodriguez Clark as much as you want. With Lafayette, UL Lafayette, pretty good pass D. You're not going to beat him over the top, but you can actually get him a little bit on the ground. And I like Louisiana. Obviously, we talk about Wooly Woolridge, their quarterback, Ben Woolridge, who has been a revelation this year. He was good last year, but he's been healthy this year. Keep in mind with UL Lafayette, 124th in rushing success rate allowed, 129th in power success rate, 108th in EPA per rush. I think you can see Drake Clark eat a little bit on the ground. So I am leaning over on Drake Clark.
Our Sue's in the chat had asked us, Thor, is there a link to your lines and plays each week? We put out the top 10 ones, which are free on FantasyLife, which is cool. The lines, they come out on Monday when we do the power ranking update. I do them all day on Sunday. Those things, all the projections with that, including updated win projection totals for the season, which I used to make future bets. Very helpful for that, is behind the tier 2 paywall at Fantasy Life. I think that the code Thor20 is still active. Use that. It's only $100 without the code, but a reasonable price. So if you're a bettor who makes your bets on Sunday, Monday in college football, which I would advocate for, definitely check that out. You can get all my lines against the Vegas lines as well. And then you can check out the bet tracker as well. That's where Gene and I have been putting in all of our best bets as we make them during the week. So you can beat some of these lines. Like when you hear us on this show saying, oh, the line was blank when we got it, now it's this, it's because we're putting the bets in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, some of the props. And that's where you get these discrepancies. Speaking of props, professional segue, let's bring on Mike Bainbridge of the CFF site, the godfather of college fantasy football, to talk about both props and then in particular DFS. We'll start with the DFS angle and then get into props, and Froton. I will drop the rest of ours. And if Gene has any, so starting with the DFS, Bainbridge, first of all, hello, happy Saturday to you. Give the people some of your prime DFS plays today.
Yeah, I'll start with the core builds. I think we're going to go a safe route here with our core builds. I love Garrett Green this week at 8K, started with the quarterback option. I kind of mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we had John Mateer on the slate from Washington State. There's really not a path to where Garrett Green's going to fail or kill your lineup. You know, because he runs, right? Yeah. And we focus on how dismal Oklahoma State is in the on run defense, but they gave up a ton of points last week to Avery Johnson at Kansas State, who was doing terribly before that. So again, running, passing, I don't think there's a way for Garrett Green to really kill your lineup. So I really love him as just kind of a core staple at quarterback. And then another safe play, Omarion Hampton, North Carolina against Pittsburgh this week. Pittsburgh's not bad against the run, but we love volume, and Hampton's getting 20 plus touches a game. The next closest running back has 27 carries for the entire season on the North Carolina roster. So I think we expect a lot of points from that North Carolina and Pittsburgh matchup. So those are my two kind of core staples in my lineups.
So and we had a question here too, that we just gone by. Speaking of that West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Logman at SS West Virginia at Oklahoma State, thoughts. The line on that one, I was trying to find the updated line. It looks like that thing is up to 2.5, 3, probably more market consensus 3 right now. Interesting that it opened at 8 and it's all the way down to 3 with Oklahoma State there. Market a bit pessimistic right now on the pokes. Bainbridge, do you have any thoughts, or any Gene or Froton, you have any thoughts about the side of that game? Any leans?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, both those teams got a bit of a stink on them. I had one prop thought, which is I'm fading. I've started to at the beginning of the season. I wasn't, but going under on Ollie Gordon here. West Virginia, their run defense is a bit better. It's West Virginia's pass defense that is an abomination. Yes. So Froton, you had mentioned Stribling maybe the last couple of weeks. Love Stribling. They have not adjusted for where the usage is actually going in the Oklahoma State passing attack. Stribling, is he over 150 yards in 2 of the last 3? It's something like that. And they're still pricing him in the high 60s. That might have gotten to 70.5. But I really like Stribling there as well. Obviously, props and DFS are correlated quite closely. Bainbridge, do you other DFS plays for people when they're looking to flesh out their lineups this week?
Yeah, some mid-tier running backs that I really like this week. Obviously, we got the news about Ches Malusi at Wisconsin, quit the team. Probably will enter the transfer portal after this year. So Tawi Walker looks set in line to start this week. I thought his prop got a little high for me in kind of that 70 yard rush range, just because, Froton was at that game last week. They used 5 running backs in the first half. So I do like him as in a DFS situation. I don't know that I would touch his 70 yard prop or wherever it's at right now. And then I don't know, I missed the start of the show, but I don't know if you guys hit on Nick Singleton went from good to go to questionable this morning. So Katron Allen at 5,600 enters basically one of the top plays now in DFS. And I think there's a Nick Singleton out there. He might be down to like 88 yards in the prop market right now. You can get anytime touchdown for Katron Allen at minus 140 at ESPN. So I would definitely look at that, both DFS and the prop angle.
Look at Bainbridge coming in with the breaking news.
There's been a lot of injury news.
Always.
This
lot of injury news.
Always Bainbridge. Bring it in on the news, of course.
Katron Allen now up to 67.5 in the market. But yeah, if Singleton is out or severely compromised, that's a bargain against UCLA and UCLA team that Penn State's going to roll.
They don't need him. They don't need him.
Speaking of injury news, Ethan Garbers, he is up. His status is up in the air for this
Bad
game.
News.
Pete Thelmo reported that today. Bad news. That
Jamie
UCLA
Martin,
team.
not a FBS quarterback.
No,
I watched him last week too after Garbers went out because they played at UCLA. Grim.
They got some real issues there. Bainbridge, any other DFS thoughts before we segue it into props?
Some good bargain bin plays.
Yeah.
One staple, Colin Lacey is probably the best play of the slate, even though he'll be severely highly owned. 8 targets last week in his return to the field, played 88% of the snaps. He's only 3,400. So he's going to be in almost everybody's lineup there. The situation we do have to monitor, I haven't checked it in the last 10 minutes, but CJ Bailey is 5,100, facing a horrible Wake Forest defense. But Grayson McCall is in warmups. He's got his cleats on. I haven't seen the most recent report just yet. Somebody in the comments said he's slated to start. So maybe CJ Bailey is not as good of a play as he was 10 minutes ago. But
that's a great play. 216.5 passing yards. That's an amazing play on the under.
Oh, there you go. Props. Yes, I was talking DFS.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah. Bainbridge, any other ones before we hit on?
I would say load up on North Carolina and Pittsburgh. I think that's and then the West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Those are going to be the 2 highest scoring games of the slate. So
yeah, we're going to have some shootouts there.
Pittsburgh, Eli Holstein, baby.
Eli Holstein. Yeah, Eli Holstein was in. I got him 287.5 earlier this week. He might have even started a couple yardage beneath that. What is he at now, Holstein? That number's been shooting up.
It's in the high 290s. I saw it as high as 298. I think.
It's almost up to 300. Started out at 282.
Wow.
Like, at this rate, we're going to have to start. I'm going to have to rename Eli Holstein. We're going to have to start calling him Ace after Casino. We've all seen Casino. Robert De Niro's character, Ace Rothstein. This is Ace Holstein right now if he goes over 300 again and gives us a beautiful cover.
I'm gonna start out the prop discussion with a couple that we have not hit yet. The USC Minnesota game, USC coming to town, be playing a mile away from me. Yeah. I like a couple, sort of 2-step on the USC side. Woody Marks, very reasonably priced rushing yards at 69.5. Minnesota's run defense is not good. Wow. Caleb Johnson did whatever he wanted. Literally whatever he wanted. Minnesota's been ripped multiple. That was just one example, but they have been ripped multiple times on the ground this year. When the game scripts are okay for Marks, and they should be in this game with USC favored by more than a touchdown, he typically goes over this number. He's been getting the carries with USC in those situations. I also went under on the Miller Moss passing at 287.5. And reason being because Minnesota's pass defense is way better than their run defense. They take away the explosive plays. So that was a 2-step there. Froton, I know that you liked a play on this game as well, a different prop play. Give us that one, and then give us some of your other prop plays today, your favorite ones.
Yeah, I mean, I have just a series of prop plays. I'll try to just domino them now. I'm going to start with Taylon Green, Arkansas, 46 yards rushing. I'm going under. We talked a little bit about that. Curtis Rourke, Indiana, at Northwestern. Dude, every time they play a game that's somewhat competitive, he's going over his passing yards. They put him at 27.5 pass attempts over at BetESPN, Curtis Rourke. He's smoking that. All right. We talked about Indiana. I love that team, and I'm 100% in. We talked about Braden Locke as well. You can actually get his under 1.5 passing touchdowns at minus 152. Lay it. Lay the 1.5. That's a free unit. Unit and a half to win a unit. Done. He is not throwing 2 passing touchdowns. Okay? We already talked about the swirling winds And then we talked about the fact he's Braden Locke and that Purdue has a really good pass rush. Our boy, Thor, Jacoby Criswell. Did I misspeak? I'm sorry. Mr. Misswell, love him. 0.5 interceptions of playing against Pitt. He threw the ball 38 and 40 times the last 2 games. Anytime the ball is going in the air with Jacoby Criswell, it is going to go into somebody else's hands. I love it. We talked about Katron Allen, over 68.5 rushing yards. Hudson Card, again, this is to kind of dovetail on Locke, 29.5 pass attempts. We took the Hudson Card under pass attempts a couple of weeks ago and we smoked it. I think we're right here in the same type of a script as Thor had alluded to here. I don't see them putting the ball in the air very much. Kevin Concepcion's at 59.5 receiving yards. I think if CJ Bailey is starting, I think that's part and parcel, where I think it's a hard time. But keep an eye on that with Grayson McCall. If he is starting, wait until game time. And you might be able to get a better line on that. Jaquindon Jackson, running back, Arkansas, listed at 75.5. He's down to 70.5. I'm going to advocate for it. I still like it. Tennessee has the number 1 rush defense in the country. Number 1 in like 5 different advanced metrics across the board. I was with Arkansas. Once they get desperate, it becomes Talon Green running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He needed a little bit of a pep talk from the coach to get his confidence up this week. I like hearing about confidence problems with quarterbacks when I'm taking interception overs. We're going to advocate for another one out of Talon Green, even though they're kind of catching on to our interception routine, guys. We've beaten them up pretty bad on the interceptions.
They caught on to the Dylan Raiola rushing total.
Starting to catch on to the Dylan Raiola rushing.
The free money train is over on the Dylan Raiola rushing props.
God damn. But last one, Trent Walker. Trent, as I like to call him, Spirit Walker.
I call him Texas Walker.
You call him Texas Walker? I will give you even my wager, Trent Walker. That's a cult song. That's Spirit Walker. Go and listen. All right. So that's all I thought of when I was betting this was Spirit Walker. I was singing Trent Walker in my head. 4.5 receptions for Trent Walker. Anytime they're in any kind of a competitive contest, he gets pounded with targets. The only guy that Giovanni McCoy will even throw to. And believe it or not, Colorado State is actually respectable on the ground. We know that Oregon State last game literally ran for 355 yards on Purdue, so they didn't have to throw it. I think they'll put the ball a little bit more in the air, and when they do, it's Trent Walker time. 4.5 receptions at pretty much even vig. Over.
Bainbridge, is you? I know you guys over there at the CFF site, you do all the projections. I think on the Discord, you still put out your favorite props of the week.
Oh yeah,
right. Yep. Give us 3 or 4, if you don't mind, of your favorite player props today.
I'm going to piggyback off Froton with Jaquindon Jackson. I won't go for the rushing, but he is at 87.5 rushing and receiving yards at ESPN. You can still get that, so I would go under there. I am sad that we don't have any Dylan Raiola rushing props anymore because Money Train.
Yeah.
But we are going back to Nebraska. Ramir Johnson, 27.5 rushing yards at FanDuel, I believe it's still at. He is the 3rd running back and the pass catching option coming out of the backfield. I believe only had 2 rushing attempts last week. Emmett Johnson, Dante Dowdell getting carries over him. So I like under 27.5 rushing there. And then
Emmett got 8 carries for 50 yards last game, Emmett Johnson. And he wasn't healthy for one of them. That's an unsettled backfield. Absolutely.
Yep. So, and then as I kind of alluded to, if you can get Katron Allen anytime touchdown, you know what? I would venture to guess it's a better chance that Nick Singleton doesn't play at this point than get, any carries at all. They don't need him against UCLA. So anytime touchdown, Katron Allen, where you can get it.
Smoking deal. Great call.
Yeah, they sure don't. And Singleton is still being listed out there. So I don't know when the books are going to take that thing down, but his number is 92.5 right now. I mean, if he doesn't play, of course, the bet's going to void out. But if he's compromised and in a game that should get out of hand quick, why would you play him enough to get 200 yards, right?
Why risk him against that horrible team?
Why?
Katron went over 102 of the last 3 games with Singleton there.
Yeah. So some plays there.
I don't know against Illinois, who's decent last game.
Lots of late breaking updates here. So yeah, always keep in mind those with the player props. But I love the Katron Allen angle. Gene, let's go to you for any other emptying the clip with any other picks that you had out there that we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you to me for giving out so many winners over these last few, weeks. We're nice with this thing over here at Fantasy Life. Y'all should be coming over and checking out that bet tracker. You would see early on. Just for people who don't know, Wednesday morning is usually when you start seeing picks from me for the week pop up over at Fantasy Life on the bet tracker. So make sure that you go over there Wednesday morning so that you could get those free dubs that I'm giving out. I was 2-0 on Thursday, 1-0 on Friday, and today I got a few that I like. Army, we already talked about a little bit, 10.5. I think that they pound out Tulsa. And then on top of that, Indiana 13.5 at Northwestern. I told you guys that I was on road favorites today. I just don't like Northwestern. Like, I just don't like their constitution, their team, how they're created. I think Indiana is the goods. I love Signetti. I think he's one of the best coaches in the land, bar none. I'm rolling with Indiana. And so then it just becomes, and I'm sorry, and I like Tulane because I think UAB is a mess over there. I've never been a fan of their head coach, and who won't even get a name out of me. But I've never been a fan of their head coach. I think UAB is a mess. I like Tulane to go in there and do whatever they want to do today. Minus 15.5 where I had it when I locked it in. But you all guys, I've talked about it with Army, and I'm back on the train this week again. Navy traveling to Air Force to take on the Falcons. It is midshipman time. There's a reason why that everybody talks about Navy and Army and not Navy and Air Force. That's because Air Force is the little sisters to Navy. They are going to show why they are the little brothers today. And Navy, I think they go into Air Force and they go absolutely bonkers. My coach's corner pick of the week. Shout out to the Service Academy stimulus package. That is the Navy midshipmen and the Army Black Knights that have been holding you down all year. Navy minus 10 over Air Force on the road. You can put it on the board. Yeah.
Yes. Froton, we'll move to you next for your torpedo, your play of the day.
Yeah, there's nothing mid about the Navy midshipmen this season, is there, boys? Oh, I know. Spare me. I already mentioned him. I apologize, but I'm going to go and make sure that I reiterate this. Our boy, Jacoby Criswell, you don't get an incredible nickname like Misswell without earning it. And man, does he ever earn it, Mr. Criswell, in a game where they're going to have to be keeping pace with a prolific Pitt offense led by Ace Holstein. God, that one's going to stick. I just cannot believe that we're going to see 40 passes out of Jacoby Criswell and he will not be turning one over. That's not how these things work. That is as good as it gets. Over 0.5 interceptions, Jacoby Misswell.
Bainbridge, if we're going to keep you to one play of the day, who would it be?
Definitely Ramir Johnson. I'll just add a couple real quick ones.
I love that too. Good one, Bainbridge.
If you can get Giles Jackson over 4.5 receptions, I love that. The Trent Walker pick, 4.5 receptions from Froton. I love that one. And then I actually saw this morning Tet McMillan plus money to get over 6.5 receptions. Our projections have him at 8. So just a couple of plays that you can add to Ramir Johnson there.
My play of the day is Peyton Thorne over rushing. I called Froton. What was this Froton when this dropped? Was this Tuesday when this line dropped?
This is right off the jump.
Right when the thing dropped. Because I thought I was seeing something or that something was brought. I'm missing something or something. That Peyton Thorne's rushing, it dropped at 11.5. And I told Froton on that call, Froton will back me up here. That line is 100%. At least, this should be doubled. Like what am I missing here? Right now, that line has now jumped up to 21.5 at FanDuel. You can still get, 20.5.
Wow, it's a 21.5.
21.5. It's literally we're double. Yeah. And then MGM's the best price right now is 18.5 to go over that number. I mentioned some of this stuff before, but the one thing I wanted to mention vis-a-vis that, Gina brought this up before. If you go on the FantasyLife bet tracker, you can see our bets as we put them in. If you had done that with Peyton Thorne, you could have had the 11.5 number. Yep. Now we're double that. I'm still going to go over though. I mean, this is the way that Auburn needs to attack that Georgia defense. Mentioned before, Georgia defense that is sagged to number 11 SP plus overall, but the run defense for Georgia, 71st success rate, 128th in opportunity rate, number 106 in power success rate. They get exploited by the outside zone concepts. Jalen Milroe did it last week. Peyton Thorne did it last season against his team. Peyton Thorne ran for 92 yards on 12 attempts against Georgia last season. And Peyton Thorne has gone over this number comfortably in what is it now?
12 or 13.
Yeah, 12 or 13 of his last regular season games.
Because Arkansas doesn't count. He didn't start Arkansas.
And they're Hugh Freeze, who, by the way, is very good in underdog spots. One of the reasons that I'm taking Auburn in this spot as well. They're going to keep this on the ground, try to avoid the turnovers that have plagued them and costing them 2 wins earlier this season. And then the last point about it, sack yardage get taken out of the quarterback's rushing totals in college. Georgia only ranks 45th in sacks per dropback. I love the over on Peyton Thorne, laddered it up and everything like that. I think that's still one that you can go out and bet right now, even though that number is double.
Yeah. For perspective on that double, when this line opened, okay, on DraftKings, and Thor and I were literally, I mean, we're almost having a heart attack about DraftKings because they only have the one-way lines now. You can only take overs at DraftKings, but everything is a ladder play, right? So they do a little extra juice. DraftKings had Peyton Thorne, 25 plus rushing yards. All right. So we're at 21.5.
Yeah.
Right now is the line at 25 plus. It was 9-1 odds on DraftKings for him to go over 25 yards. Bet 100, you get $1,000 back. Okay. Unbelievable. That was one of, sincerely, the most mispriced lines I've seen all season from a ladder standpoint, and just 9-1, where it's at 21.5 right now. It's absolutely fragrant. If you were on that bet tracker, as Thor mentioned, you could have shopped it around and got at least 7-1. I think it was 7-1 as of Thursday. Still, major opportunities out there for you.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time. The college props, you see mistake lines. This one was the biggest mistake line I've seen all season. That one on the drop, that was a dead on arrival number. Someone at the sports books is getting fired, and maybe more people will after we go out there and cash some tickets today. We've run out of time. Appreciate everyone who watched us live today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. For my co-host, Eric Froton of NBC Sports, the coach, Gene Clemons, for our special guest, Mike Bainbridge of the CFF site, I'm Thor Nystrom. Enjoy the games. Let's go cash some tickets.